All right, gang. Good morning. Good morning. Can you guys hear me okay? Let me know that you can hear me. Anyone?
I can hear you, John. I can hear you.
Awesome.
I can hear you
Sherry,
too.
welcome. Awesome. That's great. Hey, so let's get this party started. I'm situated in an office that's not mine, and so I'm just with the way it's set up. I'm actually sitting. I wouldn't normally do that, but it's all good. We'll still have a great conversation. So what I wanted to do is spend some time with you today thinking about what message could I share that would be the highest impact with everything that's going on in the world, and also just what's going on specifically in our business. So much has changed over such a short period of time. I was doing morning ascent this morning, and I asked the group if those who had been in the business 10 years or less, and it was about 60% of the people in the room, which is interesting, which means that, half the people likely or more who are in the business of real estate haven't seen a market like we are in or entering. We're just in the beginnings of that market. And I believe that we're going to be in it for a couple of years. It could be less than that, could be more than that, but I think we're in it for at least a couple of years. So much has changed so quickly. I mean, the most obvious is interest rates, how quickly they changed and how high they went relative to what we had been experiencing. Just to give you some perspective, when I got into the business, interest rates were right around 8 or 9%, and we're obviously not there. So, I mean, from a historical perspective, where we are is pretty much in line, if not a little bit less. But for many of you, you look at it and say, well, that doesn't do me any good because I was used to 2.5%, 3%, 3.5%, 4%. Well, yeah, I guess. But I want to just share with you some principles, philosophies, or standards that I think that we should all be mindful of. And regardless of what's happening in the marketplace, whatever type of market we're in, if we pay attention to these principles, they'll serve us well and we will do well. Gang, here's what I know. My personal experience teaches me this. I want to give you some perspective. When George and I started Everest with a handful of other people back in 2009, the United States and the rest of the world was in the middle of what we would call the Great Recession. And it was a very difficult time for real estate. Mortgage companies, many of them had gone out of business. Many of the large national banks had gone out of business. By the time it was all said and done, 50% of the brokerages had gone out of business. 50% of the agents were out of the business. I mean, it was what many would consider to be a difficult time. It was really a purging within, our industry. Everest was started during that. And you might say, well, why would you do that? Well, because I believe, and George believes, that the best opportunity for growth and the best opportunity for great results will always be in these difficult times. For the very reason that I mentioned, half the people got out of the business, and those who pay attention to the principles, philosophies, and standards of success, what it takes to really be successful, not just in the business, but life, will be successful. It's only a question of whether you'll adhere to those, you'll recognize those, and make those what I call the truths, your truths. One thing that, if you've heard me speak once, you've probably heard me say this because it's one of my favorite phrases, that our principles or our philosophies or our standards aren't what we say they are, but they're rather what we do. I think that's really important. Let me repeat that. Our standards, for example, aren't what we say they are. They're what we do. See, our standards are exemplified by the way we behave on a daily basis. And so many of these things that I'm going to cover with you, I've got 11 items here for you. I don't want you in your mind to say, well, I know that. What I want you to ask yourself is this question. Not only do I know that, but is it really my standard? Am I really doing this thing? See, because if you're not doing it, it's not your standard. Your standard is whatever you're doing consistently. That's your standard. And none of us may like that answer, but that's the truth. And so what I want to do is make sure that we're raising to a conscious level these principles, these philosophies, these standards as kind of a checkup, from the neck up, kind of a wake-up call to make certain that, hey, if you're not doing it, it's time to start doing these things again. Or if you've never done them, it's time to do them. And here's what I know, okay? Many of these things you're doing. Probably many of these things you're not doing. And many of these things you probably have never done. And so I think it's going to be a good time to go over this, not only because of where we are in terms of the economy, in terms of where our industry is right now, where the business is right now, but also just the time of the year. Look, gang, this is the time of the year where you should be ramping up for 2023. Now is the time where you really start to get focused and dig in to make certain that you create the best opportunity to have your best quarter ever in 2023. And you might say, your initial response might be, well, John, wait a minute, with everything that's going on with the interest rates, with the inventories, with the attitudes of buyers and sellers, and everybody's uncertain, that I don't know that now's the right time for me to expect that I can have my best quarter. And what I would say is, I absolutely disagree. Now is the best time for that. I believe that now is the best time because so many people will think exactly the opposite of that. You know, Warren Buffett says that the best opportunities are always found when there's blood in the street, when people are running for the exit. That's when those who stay focused and do the right things will always find the greatest amount of opportunity. And Everest was born out of that. I am proof of that. This company that you're part of is proof that if you will focus and you'll do the right things, then great things can be accomplished. And gang, we're in a great situation here, whether you want to acknowledge it or not right now. And you'll look back, if you do the right things, you'll look back and say, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I was so uncertain, was so nervous, was scared, whatever words you want to use to describe how you might be feeling at this point, that you might say, well, it's not very productive for me to feel that way or act that way. You're going to look back and say, oh my gosh, at the time, it's amazing how I didn't realize what an opportunity that it was. So let's start with just the first principle. The first one is this: leading with confidence. I want you to take notes if you would, gang. Write this down. I must lead with confidence. Lead with confidence. In today's uncertain world, it is very, very important that you are leading with confidence. The number one thing that you can offer to people that you're offering to serve, buyers and sellers, is your confidence. Beyond your signs, your cards, the company you're with, your market knowledge, all of those things, the number one thing that you can offer them is your confidence. So again, it's really important that you present yourself in a way with absolute certainty. And you might be saying to me, well, John, how can I be so confident with everything changing so fast, with interest rates increasing as quickly as they have? They've doubled, John, in less than a year. How can I be confident? How can I be confident when I can't predict the future? I'll just know that interest rates have doubled in a short few months, and inventories, are still relatively low historically, and people are so uncertain. How is it that I can be so confident? I can't predict the future. Well, gang, let me ask you a question. Were you able to predict the future the last 2 or 3 or 4 years? And was your confidence level higher the last 2 or 3, 4 years? See, why do you need to predict the future now when you could never predict it? I don't know how long what we're going through is going to last. And quite frankly, I don't care. I'm not going to focus my time, energy, and efforts on that question or wondering and worrying how long it's going to last. All I'm going to do is make certain that I'm doing the things that I need to do today to ensure that I get the results that I want. And that all starts with your level of confidence with which you lead. You must have confidence. And it really starts with your ability to say, look, I'm not going to focus on the things that would lead me to be scared or afraid or worried or anxious, and focus on the things that will cause you to be confident. Well, what's the dividing line there? The dividing line is what you control versus what you don't control. So you don't control interest rates. We don't control interest rates. We don't control inventories. We don't control ultimately the initial attitudes of buyers or sellers, but what we get the opportunity to control is the way in which we speak to them, the way in which we lead ourselves in that process. See, we have the opportunity to instill confidence in people, or we have the opportunity to instill fear, to stoke the fears that people are feeling right now. See, what great leaders do is they give people perspective. It's what a Martin Luther King did. It's what a John F. Kennedy did. It's what an Abraham Lincoln did. See, all great leaders give perspective in times of trouble, in times of uncertainty, and lead people out of those uncertain times. That's who you are. That's who you have to be if you're going to succeed in this business, especially in a market like this. So number one, lead with confidence. And we could talk about, the things that you should be doing in terms of reading, watching, listening to messages that build and protect your mindset, but also participating in things that are going to build and protect your mindset, like morning ascent or base camps or summits, those sorts of things, or the way a group of about 40 or 50 agents within Everest over the last several days attended UPW, Unleash the Power Within with Tony Robbins, doing those things that are going to build and protect your mindset so that you present to the public and to those people you want to have follow you a person of confidence. That's your number one value, gang. You want to separate yourself from the competition, be that person who is confident when supposedly the sky is falling, when your competition thinks that the sky is falling and they're running around like a chicken with their head cut off, wondering what they're going to do. What do you mean? What are you going to do? You're going to go back to the fundamentals. You're going to do the things that anybody who is experiencing uncertainty does. They go to the things that they do control. And this thing is the number one thing you control. It's the way in which you present yourself, the confidence with which you present yourself. So that's number one. Number two, know your job and do it. What I would venture to say is that there isn't any one of you who doesn't know what your job is. Now, if you don't know, let me just rattle off 4 specific things, because maybe some of you are brand new in the business or only a few months in the business and you're still uncertain. Look, your job, number one, is to prospect. It's to talk to people. It's to go out and find people who need you to lead them through the process of buying or selling real estate. And yes, despite interest rates being 7%, despite all the uncertainties, but despite the fact that everything has changed so quickly, despite the fact that we're in a midterm election year, which is happening tomorrow, that we're at the end of the year, all of those things mixed together, people are still going to buy and sell real estate. They always have and they always will, because people are going to die, people are going to get married, people are going to get divorced, people are going to get job transfers, people are going to retire, people are going to have financial trouble and need to sell their home. See, all of those are reasons why people are going to continue to buy and sell real estate. And so my question is, are you going to do your job? Are you going to find those people? And it starts with prospecting. Number two, it's following up with people. See, I know that most of you know this. My question isn't whether you know it. My question is, are you doing it? Are you consistently prospecting, generating leads? Once you generate leads, are you following up with those people consistently? 75% of the opportunity that you're going to find in the marketplace game is done through follow-up. Are you following up with your leads consistently? That's not when you think about it, but you have a system that you follow that reminds you systematically, consistently to call people who may be interested in buying or selling real estate, but they're ready right now. Maybe it's 30 days from now, 60 days, 90, 6 months, a year. Do you have a system? Are you following up with people? And then the third part of your job is to make certain that you're setting one appointment every day, or at least have the intention of doing that. Well, gang, if you don't set an appointment every day, it's not the end of the world. But do you wake up every day with the intention of doing that? See, if you know what your job is every single day, you'll recognize, well, it's to go out and find somebody to set an appointment with. Then I can have a conversation with them about listing their home or about helping them buy a home, or both. But see, you have to have the intention of doing that. Did you wake up with the right intention this morning? Or did you just simply wake up, panic, wondering what you were going to do? What do you mean, what are you going to do? Do your job. Get on the phone. Talk to your sphere of influence. Talk to those people over the last year or two who couldn't get into a home because there was too much competition. And even if they did find a home and they made an offer on it, somebody else was willing to pay, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 or more than the ask price, and they got priced out of the market. See, there's plenty of opportunity, but you have to focus on that opportunity. And the last thing in terms of doing your job is making certain that you're going out and actually presenting to people once you set appointments. But see, if you'll do that, if you'll prospect, talk to people, follow up with those leads that you generate, have the intention every day of setting an appointment and then presenting to people, if you'll focus on those 4 things consistently every single day and do that, I promise you, you're going to get great results. Gang, I believe that the great equalizer in life, not just in real estate, but the great equalizer in life is consistency. Consistency in doing the right things. If you'll be consistent and doing the right things, even if you're brand new in the business, I don't care if you've been in this business 20, 40, 60 days, 2 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, I don't care. If you will do the job consistently, you will outproduce an experienced agent. And if you're an experienced agent who's maybe not doing as much as they used to, I guarantee you, it's you're not doing the fundamental things consistently. Remember, consistency is the great equalizer. You want to make the chaos that's going on out there in today's marketplace irrelevant, then be consistent at doing your job. Be consistent at the lead generation, the lead follow-up, having the intention every day of setting just one appointment, and then going out and presenting to people, bringing to them a positive message that it's still possible in today's market to sell a home. It's still possible in today's market to actually buy a home and the one that you want. And it's still possible to get a great mortgage rate with the loan programs that they're coming out with, and sellers being willing to pay buyers' closing costs and to buy down rates, all sorts of ways that it's possible for people to buy a home today and make it affordable. Number 3, I want you to write this down. Be more curious and less judgmental. Be more curious and less judgmental. See, gang, what I find is that in challenging times like this, we will create a narrative in our head that says, well, nobody would ever want to buy or sell a home in today's marketplace. Really? See, I disagree. My narrative is there are people who are going to absolutely need to buy or sell a home in today's marketplace. And I'm not going to be judgmental and say, well, people aren't going to. I'm going to say, no, there is opportunity. Therefore, I'm going to be more curious, and I'm going to go out there and find those people. I'm going to be more curious and not so judgmental on people and their perspectives. See, people are pessimistic right now in many cases. Well, I'm not going to be judgmental. What I'm going to do is be more curious and try to understand why they're being so uncertain, why they're so anxious. And you might say, well, it's obvious why. Well, is it really? You don't know what's going on in their life. Don't assume that what's going on in your life is going on in theirs. Don't assume that their narrative is the same as yours. Why don't you just stop being so judgmental and start being more curious and just simply have great conversations? See, don't dismiss anybody and their interest or their willingness to do something right now. Don't be so judgmental. Be more curious. Be willing to have conversations. After all, it's your job to go and have conversations with people, to discover those who are interested in buying or selling real estate. And yes, you're going to have to go through maybe more people today than maybe a year ago to find somebody who's interested in buying or selling real estate. But here's the thing, you'll find them if you're actually doing it. You'll never find them if you're so judgmental and you say, well, nobody would ever in today's market want to buy or sell real estate, so therefore I'm just not going to do it. Gang, that's a cop-out, in my opinion. Don't buy off on those excuses. Be more curious, less judgmental. Be willing to have conversations with people. Be willing to go through more conversations, to go through more people, to find those who are actually interested in buying or selling real estate. And again, remember, they really just need to talk to somebody who is positive, optimistic, and can help them see that it is possible to navigate today's market and how it's different, and you can actually still sell a home and it can actually still buy a home and it can be affordable. But you have to show them the way. You have to be the leader. Principle number 4 that I want to share with you is this. Questions are fundamental building blocks. Questions are fundamental building blocks. So we talk about doing your job. Well, remember this, the great conversations, which is what your job is, to go out and have great conversations, to generate leads and to mature those leads into clients ultimately, right? To generate leads that convert ultimately into clients. Well, your job is to go out and have great conversations. Well, those great conversations are only great if you're doing the right thing, which is asking questions. So again, it goes in alignment with about being, more curious and less judgmental. Go out there and ask great questions. See, great, if you want to call it a presentation, a listing presentation, or a buyer broker presentation, or any quote unquote presentation, is nothing more than a series of great questions. So put together a list of great questions that you can ask people, given what's going on in today's marketplace, right? If I were going to follow up with some people or talk to some people that I was hoping would be interested in buying a home in today's marketplace, I would ask them, did you consider buying a home in the last couple of years? Oh, yes, we did. Well, how did that go for you? Well, it didn't go very well. Why didn't it go very well? Well, because inventories were so low and there was so much competition. And every time we'd find a home, if we made an offer on it, it was either already sold or worse, we would make an offer on it and somebody would outbid us. They'd pay more than list price. Even if we offered more than list price, we still didn't get it. Yeah, wasn't that interesting? Wasn't that crazy? You know what's interesting about today's marketplace? We're starting to see prices drop some, and we're not seeing situations where there are multiple offers. And so you have the time to find the right home because inventories are increasing. That now you can actually find the home. And even though interest rates have gone up, we're finding that sellers are willing to pay some closing costs, and you can buy down interest rates. And sellers are much more flexible on their price, and there's not as much competition. So have you maybe thought about re-entering the market? Well, hadn't really thought about it. Well, that's the very reason we need to get together. Let's sit down and talk about how we could actually help you and get into a home. And if it makes sense to do it, great. If it doesn't, let's put together a plan so that you know what you're going to do and when you're going to do it. Okay, that sounds great. Well, what will work best for you? I mean, gang, it's all about looking for the opportunity. If you see it as the leader, then you can cast the vision and help other people see it. But if you don't see it, they're not going to see it. So put together a list of great questions that you can ask people, knowing what's going on in today's marketplace. Remember, questions are the fundamental building block of great conversations. And if you want to build rapport and you want to build value, then ask great questions. Your job in any market is to separate yourself from the competition. And the single most effective way to do that is to lead people through great conversations. And great conversations consist of nothing more than great questions. It's your job as a great leader to ask great questions, to give people an opportunity to tell their story, to talk about what they want, what they need, what they wish for, what they desire, and what their fears are. And if you'll ask questions and you'll discover that information, now you know how you can lead people through a process, through navigating a pathway to help them, whether it's now or at some point in the future, to buy or sell real estate. Gang, your job is to build relationships, to help people feel confident in you so that you can help them when they are ready to buy and sell real estate. And all of that's done through asking questions. Principle number 5, ask discovery questions. So number 4 was ask questions and recognize those are building blocks. Number 5 is asking discovery questions. So don't just ask closed-ended questions, but ask open-ended questions. Are you interested in buying or selling real estate? The answer is no. Well, that's a closed-ended question. End of conversation. Goodbye. No. Have you ever thought about buying a home? Well, yes, we have, but we're not going to do anything right now. Great. What's caused you to decide not to do anything right now? Again, it's an open-ended question. Give them an opportunity to give reasons as to why. In other words, give you more information so you know which direction to take the conversation. But see, if you ask open or closed-ended questions and they give you yes or no, they're going to shut you down. The conversation is going to end very quickly and you're going to get very frustrated. But if you'll ask open-ended questions, you're going to discover more information. Your conversations are going to be longer. And when you have longer conversations, this is cool. When you have longer conversations, you have a tendency to build more rapport. When you build more rapport, the defense walls that people put up come down and you have a greater connection with them. They start to open up about their wants, their needs, their wishes, their desires, their hopes, and their fears. And when they do that, you as the leader can start to discover and present to them solutions to their fears, to their challenges, to their hopes, to their wants, their desires, and hopefully begin to change their perspective, because that's what leaders do. Leaders help people change their perspective to see things differently so they begin to behave in ways that they didn't initially thought that they could or were willing to, and then they'll take action that they weren't going to take prior to meeting you, the great leader. So where do you find these open-ended questions? Well, they're in your script book. You're going to find that the vast majority, 90% of the questions that are in your script books are open-ended questions. They're discovery questions. So if you're not familiar with those, then go back and review those and use those questions, whether it's a FSBO call, an expired call, a just listed call, an SOI call, doesn't matter. All of those questions are there. You don't have to create them. Just look for those questions in your script book and ask those open-ended questions. Principle number 6, time management versus event management. This is a very important principle, especially right now. Time management versus event management. A great book on this subject, gang, by the way, is Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. If you've never read it, write the title down and get the book because it talks in detail about this principle. But let me just talk about this briefly. See, most people will say that they don't have enough time to get what's done during their day. And I hear that a lot from real estate agents, which fascinates me because if I look at most real estate agents, they don't have enough business to justify that statement that they don't have enough time to get everything done in their business. But let's assume that you do. My question is, well, are you looking at it through the lens of time management or event management? Well, John, what do you mean by that? Well, here's my question for you. Do you know what your highest impact activities are on a daily basis for your success in real estate? Do you know? See, and if you know what those activities are, my question is, are you prioritizing them? Are you making those activities the first activities that you do throughout the course of your day? See, if I were to ask you what's the number one highest priority activity that you know, not the one that you should be doing, right, or are doing, but just what is the highest impact activity that you believe you should be engaged in on a daily basis in real estate? What would you say? Gang, what would you say? What would you say is your highest impact activity? Anyone? Are you there? Shows that there are a lot of people on the call.
Prospecting.
Contact your sphere. Okay, Mike says contact your sphere. What did you? Who was the other person? Would you say?
I said prospecting your sphere.
Prospect your sphere. Yeah. Okay. Great. In other words, it's reaching out to people. That number one activity is reaching out to people. Remember, gang, it's not about time management, it's about event management. What is interesting is that there are people who accomplish so much more than you do or I do on a daily basis. I mean, look at it. The person who holds the office of presidency, of the presidency. I don't mean the current one or the past one or the future one. I just mean whoever is in that position. Do they not do a lot more on a daily basis? Do they not have a lot more to be responsible for? And the answer, of course, is yes. Well, how do they get so much done on a daily basis? You can say, well, they've got all of these aides and all these people helping them. Yeah, that's not the answer. The answer is they prioritize. They always do the highest impact activities first. And the reason they do that is because they know they can only get so much done on a daily basis. And first things need to be done first. So again, recognize what your highest impact activities are. What you'll usually find is this. This is the truth test. Your highest impact activities are always the ones usually that you want to do the least. Your highest impact activities are usually the ones you want to do the least. That's why most real estate agents will say to me, I just don't have enough time, despite the fact that they don't have enough business. It is so interesting. I rarely have an agent who's doing 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 deals who will say to me, John, I just don't have enough time. Those are usually not the conversations we have. Okay. So I just want you to think about that. What are your highest level of impact activities? And are you prioritizing those? See, that's the key. You want to do more business? You want to make more money? Then don't look at time management, look at event management. Take those highest impact activities and prioritize them. Make those the first things that you do on a daily basis. Number one, it should be prospecting. Number two, it should be following up. And number three, it should be presenting to people. If you're doing those three things, those are the first three things that you do on a daily basis, I promise you, you'll have enough business regardless of what the market is doing. But if you put other things before those things, I promise you, you'll never have enough business. And in markets like this, you'll die on the vine. You'll go out of business. So prioritize. Make it a high priority to do those three things. Lead generate, lead follow up, and present to people on a daily basis. Okay, number 7, we're close to this. Number 7, practice. Gang, you got to practice. It is critical that you're practicing your skill of communicating with people on a daily basis. I suspect there isn't one of you on this call who hasn't made it a goal to earn at least $100,000 or more a year. My question for you is, how do you expect Or how can you justify making that amount of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars on an annual basis, and not practice the skill of communicating with the people that you want to lead? How is it that you think you're going to get better at leading people, of having these conversations, especially in uncertain time, if you're not committing at least a half an hour, if not an hour on a daily basis, to practice the conversations of calling your sphere, of calling FISBOs, expireds, just listed, just sold, of calling buyers, having these conversations in a way that you sound confident because you are confident because you practice these conversations consistently. See, I take a look at top athletes, or I take a look at top actors and actresses. They practice their skills on a daily basis. You look at professional athletes, those, for example, the NFL, they'll practice 40 to 45 minutes for every minute that they play on the field. It's a 1 to 45 ratio. Well, gang, are you doing that? Are you practicing for every hour that you practice, or that you work in real estate, making phone calls? Do you practice 45 hours? Of course you don't. There wouldn't be time to do that. But what if it were just a 1-to-1 ratio? For every hour that you made phone calls, that you practice an hour with one of your contemporaries or one of your associates? Or what if you just did this? What if for every hour that you made phone calls, you practiced for 15 minutes? You know, if you made calls for 3 hours a day, you practice for 45 minutes a day making phone calls, don't you think your ability to make those phone calls and actually set appointments would go up dramatically? And the answer, of course, is yes, of course. The reason Tom Cruise gets paid about $25 to $30 million for a movie is because he memorizes the script, and then he practices how to deliver the script so that you will go and pay 15 to 20 bucks to watch the movie. And you believe that it's real. You believe it's real because you laugh, you cry, you get scared. He makes you clench. He makes you jump out of your seats. He entertains you. And it's all make-believe. It's lights flashing on a screen that converge to create this image that you watch, and it causes you to laugh and cry and be entertained. Well, gang, if you would do the same thing that he does to prepare for a film in terms of practice, you could make hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions too, but you've got to practice. Number 8, accountability. Are you being held accountable? See, everybody has willpower. The problem with willpower is that it wanes and eventually it goes out like a candle. You can only do any activity for so long before you give out, unless you are being held accountable. Are you being held accountable? Do you have an accountability contract? Do you have those in your life that rely upon you, or those in your life that want to see you succeed, or those in your life that you can ask to hold you accountable? Are these people aware of what you want, and are you being held accountable by them? Gang, I don't care who you are, how long you've been in the business. Look, I'm held accountable to activities in my life and things that I want to accomplish. I don't care who you are. You have to be held accountable if you're going to do the thing that you have to do consistently long term, because over time, our willpower will wane and we'll stop doing it. And it goes back to what I said. Consistency is the great equalizer. Your willpower is going to give out long before you get the consistency and the momentum you need. So therefore, you have to be held accountable. And in this market, gang, I'm telling you, it is more critical than ever that you be held accountable to the fundamental things that you have to do to get the great results that you want, especially in this market. You have to be held accountable. Number 9, derive your sense of self-confidence, not from the results that you get, but from the system of the process. Let me repeat that. Derive your sense of self-confidence, not from the results that you get, but from the system or the process. And that's exceptionally important right now. See, for many of us out there, we do the thing, and if we don't get the result from it, then we beat ourselves up. That is a dangerous game. Michael Jordan didn't make every shot. He made about 2/3 of his shots. Gang, don't derive your sense of self-confidence from the result that you get, but derive it from the fact that you know you're doing the right thing consistently. Because if you do the right thing consistently over time, you're going to get the results that you want. So again, let me repeat that. Derive your sense of self-confidence, not from your results, but from the process of doing the right thing consistently. All right? That's number 9. Number 10. We only got 2 more, or 1 more after this one. Show yourself grace. Show yourself grace. The single most important conversation that every one of us will ever have is the conversation we have with ourselves. And I watch people, especially when things get difficult, when times change, when the process changes, when the market changes, when interest rates change, when we're not getting the results that we were getting because we have to double down. We have to improve the way in which we are conducting ourselves on a daily basis. When we're not getting the results that we want, we start to beat ourselves up. We have this narrative in our brain. And we say these things to ourselves that we wouldn't allow anybody else to say. Again, we have to show ourselves grace. We have to be kind to ourselves. We have to improve the way in which we talk to ourselves. There isn't any one of you on this call who doesn't have the ability to get great results in real estate in today's market. I promise you, over the next 12 months, if you'll adhere to the rules of success in real estate and in life, if you'll adhere to them, you're going to get great results. But if you ignore the rules of success, if you ignore the fundamentals, you won't. Again, if you're paying attention to the fundamentals and at times you're not getting the results that you want or in the time that you want it, don't beat yourself up. Now is not the time to stand in the line of the people who are willing to criticize you. You need to be your number one fan. And until you learn or have the ability to do that, then make certain you're surrounding yourself by people who are going to call you on your crap, of beating up yourself. Now, it's one thing to hold yourself accountable and say, I'm not doing these fundamental things that I should be doing. That's not beating yourself up. That's being honest. But if you're saying, I can't, I'm not smart enough, I don't deserve it, or if people knew who I really was, that they wouldn't follow me, why could I ever expect somebody to be confident in me? Don't stand in that line. Don't start telling those stories. Don't start buying into that. Show yourself grace. The single most important conversation you will ever have is the conversation you have with yourself, because you cannot give to other people what you don't give yourself and which you don't have. You can't allow other people to be confident in conversing with you if you're not confident in yourself. Show yourself grace. You're figuring this out. You're working through it. You know what the principles of success are. You adhere to those. You're not 100% at it, but you work every single day to recognize them and adhere to them. And you're being held accountable to it. If you'll do that, I promise you, you're going to get great results. And then the final principle is this one. And it's not last because it's the least important. We have to end somewhere, is to celebrate. Celebrate along the way, gang. Give yourselves reason to celebrate. Set the goal of, hey, today I'm going to prospect for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours, or I'm going to talk to 5 people or 10 people or 15 people. And when you do it, celebrate, reward yourself, recognize that you're doing the right thing. Because see, it's so easy. We all get in the habit of beating ourselves up. Every time we do something wrong or we don't do something we said we're going to do, we're the first ones to stand in line and beat ourselves up. Gang, I'm here to tell you, be the first one to stand in line to celebrate, to congratulate yourself, to recognize that you're doing things that will get you ultimately what it is that you want. Now, look, I didn't invent any of these things. All I try to do is to adhere to these 11 principles. And what I will tell you is that more than the average person, I adhere to these principles. As a result, I get better results than the average person. It isn't written anywhere that you have to get worse results than the next person. It isn't written anywhere that you can't get results as good as a Dave Parker or a Kathleen Bruno or a Tina Hare or an Austin Kells or anybody else. It isn't written anywhere. So you get to decide whether you're going to recognize the principles, be held accountable to them, and then go out there and do those things. But I promise you this, if you'll do it and you'll be consistent at it, gang, the sky is the limit. And you can make the next 12 months your most profitable, but you have to go out there and do the work. All right, we're out of time. Thank you for sticking on here. Gang, stay engaged. Great job on being on this call. Morning Ascent, the Daily Message, Base Camp, Elevates, Summits, all of those things. Participate, stay engaged. Do not isolate. Do not withdraw. Do not commiserate with people who are saying negative things. Now is the time. Now is your time. So go out there and do that. And as I always say, give these things some thought. And as usual, I will see you at the top. See you next time.